This is Natalie Rolls, and you are listening to the Bill Podcast. Presented by Patrick Stratford. Brought to you in association with GeorgeFairbrother.com, shop.saturdaymorningpress.co.uk, vanguardcomics.co.uk, gibconsultancy.co.uk, mcr-seo.com, and johnspillane.com.
Today on the Bill Obbocast, I'm joined by Gary Moncur, where we take a look at the two-part series finale of the Bill, Respect. It was fascinating to hear Gary's journey of watching the programme, and I hope you will also enjoy listening to that and our discussion of the final episodes of the show. Gary Moncur, welcome to the Bill Obbocast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, what I always like to do with each of these Obblecasts is to ask, how did you first discover the Bill? Like, what led you to becoming a fan of the series?
It's an interesting for me because having lived outside the UK for many years, and I'd come home to visit, and I'd always see the Bill on television because it was on so much. And back when I first moved here, I used to have my mother send me tapes of old TV shows or TV shows I could keep up with. I'd bought a special video recorder so I could play them back and stuff. But I never asked her for the Bill for the simple reason there was too many episodes. There was no way she was going to keep up with it. So I never actually watched it until lockdown. That was the first time I ever watched an episode of the Bill. And you may remember, you may not know, but it was UK TV started to show from episode 1. I said, right, I've got some time. Now we're going to watch it. And they took me on this journey. I watched every day. I started watching. And then all of a sudden, they stopped showing it at like series 20. They just cut it off. And I'm looking for it. I'm like, what is it? Because I'm totally engaged at this point. And so I actually texted them. I said, hey, what's going on? And they said, well, it'll come back at some point. Well, it wasn't good enough for me. So I went out and I procured every other episode there was and finished watching I watched all 2,400 episodes of the Bill. So really, for me, it began in lockdown. I knew it existed. The one character that always stood out to me, not because I knew anything about him, was Bob Cryer, because Eric Richards, he was always to me, he was always the face of the Bill in some ways. And that's who I remembered seeing that character on TV a lot when I used to go back and visit. And now, of course, I know much more about the show. But I was on a mission at that point to watch every episode, and I did. So I've seen every single episode and became a huge fan at that point as well. Many, many years after it finished on television. I actually started rewatching the Bill. I traveled a lot for work, and that was my go-to thing on the plane, just load up the laptop and watch them. And I think the one thing that stood out, maybe we can touch on this, and everybody says the same thing, and that is the original Bill in the early days was better than the final years, if you will, for all different reasons, the soap opera aspect or whatever. But after rewatching from the very beginning, and yes, watching some of those later episodes, it's so true how there's such a different dynamic and how the program did shift. You get attached to characters and you like the characters, but the program truly shifted away from what it was, and it really stood out to me. I watched 3 episodes this week, Respect, and I watched what's the other one that Stamp was in? What was it in? I forget now. Rescue Me. That's it. And it was such a different dynamic from the very beginning. Things evolve and change. But for me, I think it became more evident as to what people talk about when they say, oh, yeah, the original days were the more focused. And they were more focused on police procedural. That's what I noticed more than anything, on the differences from the oldest ones to the more recent, not the more recent, but the newer, the latter ones. It's hard to guess why the show shifted, because TV people make those decisions all the time based on what they think is going to work. Again, I think it was just so evident of the contrast between the early days and the latter days, how different it truly was. And it may have just been a sign of the times. I mean, it may just be what people wanted at that time.
You can unlock the Bill Obbocast, a new monthly spin-off series, on patreon.com/The Bill Podcast.